Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is a news and notes catch up, so there will be a few new things, but also some topics from the past week or so. I had been battling with an ear infection, so I'd been pretty tired and not able to always get to do some videos that I might have otherwise done under usual circumstances, but we'll crack into it anyway. Dillian Whyte, over this injury that forced him out of that Otto Wallin fight, which would have happened on October 30. So he held that press conference and he addressed the media, and it was just a little bit curious as to why it was actually needed. Because we'd already heard via a press release and comments that had been made through the media from his promoter, etc. The injury had occurred, a medical specialist had basically said he couldn't fight. So I'm not sure what the press conference really proved, because I don't think it quelled the speculation that some fans have. And there was nothing in that press conference that, if you either thought it was suspicious or if you thought it was legit, either way, it's not going to change your mind anything that you heard. But there was one curious comment that Dillian Whyte said, and he's repeated since, and this was on the latest Matchroom show, talking about how Josh Taylor got injured and, he hasn't got any criticism. But I'm not sure that was the best example for Whyte to use, because Whyte was injured, Taylor was injured, but the show has, with the same opponent, has subsequently been rescheduled. So I'm not sure if that's the right example, because it would tend to sort of point towards, well, are you going to do the same? Because that's what Taylor did. And this is why the reason Taylor's not getting criticism, because he's still fighting the same guy. But I did know, and with a little bit of, a bit of a chuckle under my breath, people talking about Dillian Whyte putting on his hat saying, see, his shoulder can't be injured. And speaking from experience of having different shoulder problems over the years, depending on what's injured in your shoulder can affect, what range of motion and what sort of level of pain you have doing different things. So that's quite a narrow motion putting on his hat. For me, for example, I'm sort of, if I've got my arms sort of more splayed out, that's where I've got sort of pain. But yeah, it did make me chuckle, because even if he did have some issues, it's not like his arm's about to fall off. He can still do things, have a range of motion, just may not be comfortable. That is if, in fact, you believe that he's injured at all. At the end of the day, like I've said previously, at this point, does it really matter? For Otto Wallin, it does, but for everyone else, it is what it is. It's boxing. We expect the worst and get pretty much nothing delivered most of the time. So it's a shame that fight didn't happen, because it was a good fight. Ultimately, will it get rescheduled? No. Will he face Tyson Fury? Well, that's another question, because Fury, his promoters and Fury himself have basically sort of said Tyson Fury will fight whoever Tyson Fury wants. And I'm going to come back to that in another video. But anyway, moving on. So just on Tyson Fury. So Mike Tyson, he has been quoted as saying, and you can see here on screen, Tyson hails Tyson. Keep on winning, brother. Keep winning. He's lineal champion. He's the man who beat the man. He is heavyweight boxing. Nobody else. Ask anybody except Usyk who's the heavyweight champion. Usyk might even say it's Fury. And that's Mike Tyson talking to Reuters. And I've seen some people discussing Tyson Fury, saying he doesn't need to fight on. He's done enough in his career. If he retires today, then, he's basically done his lot. But for me, I think that he needs to do more. All these guys need to do more. The legacy building never stops. And for Tyson Fury, if he really wants to say he's the best of his generation, keep fighting, keep facing those guys that we want to see him in against. He has fought some really good opposition in his career, but he's not done, in my view. If you believe different, well, more power to you. Alen Babic, he has been called out by Christopher Lovejoy. See, Lovejoy here, his post on social media saying, I need that fade with Alen Savage Babic. Whatever we got to do to get it made, I'm with it. He said he want to get knocked out. I'm going to give him what he wants. And I know some people will say, why are you even mentioning Christopher Lovejoy? But to me, this would be an epic build-up. The fight itself may not be much chop, and I think a lot of people would think that Alen Babic would decimate Lovejoy, especially after the showing from Lovejoy against Char. but it would be a fun build-up. And let's face it, Alen Babic is facing a certain level of opposition at the moment that it's not too ambitious. It's traditional prospect building, getting guys that are either non-punchers, basically journeymen, sort of area level, sort of type fighters, or former title contenders who are well past prime and basically not up to much anymore, a la Eric Molina. And then they're going to keep feeding him that sort of opposition, step him up slowly. So I did have a chuckle when I actually saw DAZN post Alen Babic, who's next? Filip Hrgovic, Zhang Jilei, Faiga Opelu, Martin Bakole. I don't think any of those fights happen next. I'd be shocked if any of them did. I don't think there's that level of ambition from Eddie Hearn to step Babich up to anything like that. They want to push this whole Savage Babich thing because he's an increasingly popular fighter with casual fans. There's this whole gimmick thing that he's got going on, this persona that he's building. They're going to milk that for everything that it's worth. They're not going to stick him in too soon that he gets beaten up and then it's all over. If they can push this out for another year or so, or even more before he faces someone with a pulse, they will. So there is this disconnect between this sort of rhetoric, from the guys that show his shows, and the actual reality of the people that he's facing. And we're going to see that continue for a while. Joseph Parker, so he is in camp with Andy Lee. He's in Morecambe and Tyson Fury's home base. And I thought when I saw this photo, so Parker had posted this a couple of days ago, saying 1 week down. He did actually enter camp in mid-October, so maybe it's more like 2 weeks. But I thought for Joseph Parker, who sometimes has used training camps as more of, fat camp, and then he's sort of the final few weeks he's in really good condition. I thought actually he is treating, his career more seriously, because you don't normally from Parker get these sorts of shots with him with his shirt off, looking in really good condition this early in camp. As we know, he's scheduled to face Derek Chisora in December in a rematch that he sort of said he needs to win and win well, and if he doesn't, well, what's the point of him continuing his career? Saying that to the New Zealand media is one thing, but I think even if he wins and wins ugly, he will continue his career, because ultimately that's been his career to a large extent. Joseph Parker has made a career of winning ugly in sort of close competitive fights where he has often got decisions. That Derek Chisora at the first fight, that typified that. We've seen that previously. Andy Ruiz, Carlos Takam. There's been a number of performances where Parker has sort of gritted through, got the decision. But we haven't really seen anything in recent years where he sparkled and you've gone, wow, what a performance. And I know a lot of fans have been tiring with Parker and where his career has been going, especially the few years where he was just facing tune-ups and nothing else. But he has an opportunity in December. As he says, he wants to put on a performance, knock Chisora out and be impressive. So let's see if he can do that. And I think for his stock, especially with the fans, because a win here, and if it's just sort of gritting it out and it's close, competitive, and question mark about whether he actually won, I think fans will still be like, well, meh, because that's kind of what Parker's career in recent years has been like, a little bit kind of like, well, whatever. But he needs to prove to fans that he's above, where Derek Chisora is, because Chisora's been a gatekeeper to the world level, to the elite level sort of guys. And Parker needs to go in there and make a statement for his career, for his fans, and for his stock in the heavyweight division. Okay, moving on. So Lucas Browne has been confirmed in a fight against Faiga Opelu, otherwise known as Django. So that's going to take place December the 3rd in Australia. So this is more of an appropriate level fight for Lucas Browne at this stage of career. Let's face it, 42 years old, no chin, completely washed. This is a domestic level fight. But there is some danger with this, because for anyone thinking that Lucas Browne's just going to go in here and get the W and it's going to be easy work, I wouldn't be so sure, because we've seen Faiga Opelu. He actually fought Justice Hooney at the start of Justice Hooney's career. He's very tough. He's very durable. But he is a better style matchup for a guy like Lucas Browne, whereas Justice Hooney was using, his footwork and sort of the ring, his speed. Faiga Opelu and Lucas Browne, they're basically going to be in front of each other, trading punches. So it's not going to be one of those sort of fights where you're going to see a lot of ring craft, I don't think. It's going to be more of letting hands go. But Opelu has shown a decent chin before, but Browne's a bigger puncher than Huni. So there's a few interesting things, but if it goes past 2, 3, 4 rounds, I think it starts to favour Opelu because Browne will gas. He's shown that he's just got no gas tank anymore. He's got no chin, and if he can't protect it, he's going to get taken out. But in the same breath, because he is a puncher and Opelu will be there to hit, he's certainly in this fight. But it is a more appropriate fight for Browne at this stage, but by no means a lock. I would actually favour Faiga Opelu at this point. Charles Martin, so he is probably one of the biggest losers from the global pandemic in a heavyweight boxing sense, because coming off a very good win over Gerald Washington in February 2020, just haven't sighted him in the ring since. And it's been a real shame for Martin, because there's other guys too that have been inactive, but not as inactive as him. Even in his own stable, most of the other guys have had at least one fight, some of them even two. You've had a few guys within the PBC stable who have had more, like Michael Polite-Coffey. But Charles Martin has been sitting, waiting and watching. So he's in a camp at the moment. Seemingly there's going to be something that he's working towards. No fight announced at this stage, but you got to feel for the guy, because obviously this is not the first time that he's entered a camp and, for activity to keep ticking over. He's had a couple of these in the past 18 months or so. So let's hope that there is some fight news for Charles Martin soon. Moving on to a Universe in Box promotion card that has been announced for the 20th of November. You've got Senad Gashi and Jose Larduet. They will be returning on that date, not in fighting each other. They are stablemates, so no opponents as yet, as I can tell. But a number of other guys that you may have seen in different sort of world title fights in the past year or two. Jeremiah Ponce. You've also got Avni Yildirim. He seems to be fighting every 6 weeks at this point, Yildirim. But anyway, so a couple of heavyweights to watch out for. Moving on, so another fight announcement made in recent days. So you've got Raphael Akpejiori. So he is the Nigerian who fights out of the United States in the sort of Miami area. 12-0 at the moment. Big puncher, returning November 6th. So he is one to watch out for. But the last couple of fights have been trying to get a stream or something. Just haven't been able to sort of catch these. Often there is sort of footage that he posts after the fact on his Instagram, but someone hopefully would live stream this. It would be great. Frazer Clarke, the Olympic bronze medalist, is sort of back to the grind, and he's making a statement to the heavyweight division saying routine is back, focus is back, consistency, frequency, intent are back. It's been a lovely break, but now I want it all. Slowly building my team, and the aim is simple: become heavyweight champion of the world. Yes, I said it, heavyweight champion of the world. And signing off there, big phrase. So I'm sort of in the camp where I've got a question mark about how far he can go in the division, but he is a good addition to the heavyweight division, and hopefully we do see him out soon and regularly. Another guy who's about to turn pro, or have his first pro fight, I should say, is the former Team GB member Hosea Stewart, who recently signed with Wasserman Boxing. So he's previously been in Anthony Joshua training camp, so that's where I sort of first spotted him and have been watching out for him. But he says 4 weeks' time, we back to business. So he is attending on a show called the Development Series, which is presented by Wasserman Boxing, November 25th, York Hall in London. So it'll be good to see him in action, to see what he's really all about. And if you don't know too much about him, he is a big unit, very sort of thick set, but it'll be interesting to follow his progression too. As this last heavyweight prospect, Teremoana Jnr. from Australia. So he's a big dude, 6'6", 23 years old. Just had a second pro fight just the other week on a Tasman Fighters card. And actually, Teremoana Jnr., and you can see here on screen, so if you want to go follow him, and I do encourage you to do so, because he's posted his recent fight up here. So it's early days for him, and this was a first round performance against Daniel Joyce, but he's got the whole fight up here. But, snappy jab, he moves well, like really well for a big guy. So I'm really interested to see how he goes. So he's been on my radar since the start of this year. He turned pro end of last year. He was meant to have a fight or two on different cards earlier this year, but they got scrapped with opponents pulling out on that. But certainly recommend checking him out. And you can see that recent fight which he's got here. I won't play it because I risk getting copyrighted, but do check it out. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.